welcome to At Home Times 3. I'm the editor of Brotherly Game. My name is Matt Ralph. I'm here joined by a couple of Providence guys wearing black, the black of Providence College. I got Keasel Broome here, zooming in, and I got Nick Saylor, a couple of guys who played for some programs, great teams at Providence. I brought these guys on today to talk some memories. I've been doing a lot of looking backwards as a writer, as a podcaster, since there's nothing going on right now in terms of actual competition outside of Germany and Belarus and maybe South Korea. And I wanted to talk today about, one of my fondest memories of following as a fan of soccer. A couple of them that these guys were involved in. One was the 2014 Big East Championship in Chester, Pennsylvania. And another is the incredible, and even just talking a little bit before this, one of the most unlikely wins ever pulled off in any kind of tournament, any sport really, when Providence came back down 4-1 to Maryland and beat the mighty Terps in that game. Starting off, Keasel, you were the goalkeeper at the Big East Championship in 2014. Your family made themselves known in the stands, obviously being a guy from Delaware. Looking back on that experience, what's that like now being in the stadium, the Union, your local team, and winning a trophy there at PPL Park at the time?
Oh man, to be fair, I think we do have to go back even just a year previous, 2013. That was the year where a lot of things happened for me personally. I lost my father to cancer, and then with me being so close to at the time PPL Stadium. That was something where I remember I sat down with the guys. Nick was a freshman at the time, and I was like, hey, listen, they all kind of saw what I was going through this spring semester. And I was like, hey, it would mean the world to me if we could if I could get home, if I can go home and see my family and be in that environment. So having a bittersweet of not winning the championship in 2013 kind of, left a bad taste in my mouth, and wanted to get back for 2014. And I feel that the 2014 year, it was one of those things where the stars just aligned. We had the team, we had the depth, we had the game plan, we had the attack that I thought was just probably at least one of the top 10 in the country by far, with the weapons that we had, not just in the starting 11, but also coming off the bench. I thought defensively, we had some absolute rocks in the back, and it just all came together. My mom, I'll tell you, if you ever interview my mom, she will actually replay that game from 2014, even today. She will literally go back and watch the highlight of that game. She actually was upset one time where the Big East actually took the game off their replay list. But no, it was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. My mom was actually living in Vegas, and flew across to the Red Eye for the semifinal and stayed for the championship, and then flew back the next day.
This week we've been doing Underdog Week on brotherlygame.com, the other SB Nation sites. But next week we're going to be talking about crying in sports. So maybe was that a moment? There were some tears shed, I imagine, in that moment when you're lifting that trophy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I remember going over to my mom, my family, and just tears just coming down. It was just it was unbelievable, great feeling.
Snotty tears. It's real type of cry. That's when it hits deep. When you got snot coming out. Real emotional, really great.
Team, what was that experience like? And knowing that how emotional this was for Keasel.
Actually, so it's interesting because Keasel and I's relationship goes pretty far back, even before I even got to Providence. When I was on my recruiting visit, I stayed with Keasel, and I knew that this was my guy. So, just even before the 2013 season when I was a freshman and the 2014 season, I think our bond was so strong that, just seeing, someone that I cared about, really going through a difficult time and really trying to do whatever it is that I can to kind of, help in that time. And so, having lost in 2013, really working so hard to get to the final, right, and then losing, and then all of the things that followed after, it really kind of became, a part of the mission of what we were doing. Hey, not only do we want to win, but we want to get back to PPL Park. We want to do this for Keasel's family. There's so much behind our efforts in there, and so I really think that like Keasel was saying, all the stars aligned. For me, I was coming off the bench as a defensive midfielder, and really thinking about my role and whatever it is that I can do, just kind of being that, hard-nosed tackling kind of guy, and just whatever it took to kind of get us over the hump, because that was really sort of our mentality, our grinding and our effort, was that we just really needed to do all that we could, because there was so much behind it. We suffered the disappointment from the year before. There was, personal connections to this, and really wanted to get that elusive sort of trophy. So to be able to do that in 2014 was something that was just, absolutely incredible. And, I look back on those days, really fondly, and get a lot of joy out of thinking about them.
Right. And something about in sports, when you get a hold of a piece of hardware that can really breed further success. And so that season, you guys weren't done. You weren't done just lifting a trophy down in Chester. You guys made a run all the way to the Final Four. What was that experience like for you, Keasel, to kind of keep that going as this was, you're extending your college career now with every win you're getting under your belt then?
Yeah, it was interesting because before that season, we were very known for like getting to the NCAA tournament, always win the first round, lose the second. Like that was like our MO for our entire history. And it was interesting because that year, I guess because our league table or one of the championship, whatever, we got that first round bye. So now we're coming in at the second round and we're hosting. So I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. We get to take on, I think it was either Fordham or Dartmouth that they were playing. I was like, oh, that sounds like I like my matchup. Okay, I'll take that. And then, Dartmouth came to our place. It was a good game. And then now we won that game, and I'm like, oh wow, now we've just did history. Like this was unbelievable. Like now we're in the third round. And because our goal was always for me, I always wanted to have Thanksgiving in Providence. That was kind of one of the things that I always wanted to. So it worked out well, even though I still went home to see my family on Thanksgiving and came back. And then we played, was it UC Irvine? I think it was UC Irvine in that next game. Yeah, so UC Irvine, and this is what I mean, stars align, because UC Irvine had to beat Stanford, and Stanford had Jordan Morris on it. So the last thing that I was trying to do is go to California and play Jordan Morris. But it worked out well. UC Irvine, I think, won in double overtime or overtime. They flew to New England in 30-degree weather when they used to that sunny California. So I remember even seeing them get off the bus, and they're like
shivering.
It was like 40 degrees. So for us, we're like, oh, this is nice for Providence. We'll take this day.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I'll always remember that game because I had absolutely nothing to do, and I loved it. And when I have nothing to do as a goalkeeper, it's great. I think I have to give praise to the guys in front of me for that. And then we won that game, and I'm just like, we're going to the Elite Eight. Like, this is going to be interesting. And going to Michigan State, I'll never forget it because my freshman year was the first year we ever played Michigan State. We got absolutely demolished 4-0. Took a red card in the first 12 minutes.
They're a tough team, man.
Yeah, very tough team. And then they came to us 2 years later in 2012. We lost 3-2. So in my head, in both of those games, they always had a fast start. Scored in the first 5-10 minutes. That was big Midwestern guys. So we went there and they scored in the first 5 minutes. And in my head, I'm just like, it's about to be third time's a charm. This is going to be absolutely ridiculous. But
I want another game where I don't have to do anything, damn it.
Yeah, I had to pick the ball out of the net quite early. But it's actually funny. If you actually go online, the highlights are still there. And the game ended 3-2. And in terms of the 5 goals that were scored, I mean, they were all world-class goals. I mean, the first one and the second one, I mean, it was like I don't want to be disrespectful, but it was like a poor man version of Barcelona. It was like bing, 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 goal. And then for us, it was, some absolute individual skill, a couple worldy upper ninders. I mean, and then we just kind of hunkered down for those last kind of 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, that Michigan State game was unbelievable. And then into the Final Four, I was just like, this is it's funny. And even the backtrack that year, that was the first summer where everyone kind of came together over the summer, and we were doing summer workouts together. We were training together. We were doing all these different things. And I'll never forget, we had these turf workouts on Friday morning. and we had this kind of med ball toss across the field hockey field, and when you kind of get in that zone, you start talking trash. I'm here just talking trash. I'm just like, I'm throwing a med ball. I'm like, my last game as a Friar is going to be till like December 15th, not knowing December 17th was the national championship. December 15th was the semifinal. So, it's one of those things where you spoke into existence and it happened.
Should have said the 17th,
I
man.
know.
Should have said the 17th.
That's my fault for not paying attention to what the actual date was. But it was going to that game, it was unbelievable being at Wake Med and the amount of people that were there. I think that at that time, the most people I've ever played of and from, like people I've ever decided to play in front of. And I decided to, I was always kind of comfortable with my feet, so I decided in that game to take on 2 forwards in the national semifinal. And my coaching staff after the game was like, what were you thinking? I was like, well, if we're going to go out, might as well go out big. So I decided to take out 2 forwards. But no, it was unfortunate. It was unlucky, but to be able to be on that stage, especially to be with these guys was unbelievable, and to kind of go through that ride. And we knocked off a lot of records, in terms of the program and things like that. I mean, I think it's unbelievable.
We're not talking about a team that won it all, unfortunately, because Keasel messed up the date, or else you guys probably would have been playing on the 17th. But, just about getting there, because, what's it like to be there and to kind of be part of a little bit of the, the pomp and circumstances that does go around any NCAA event where you're there for the final weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that you dream about, right? So this idea of when you're a kid, you're like, I want to play, Division I soccer. And it's like, okay, now you're there. And then it's like there's levels and more levels to it, and really sort of being a part of this magical run. And I think what was really unique was that this hadn't been done before at PC. So it wasn't as if there was a blueprint for what the campus would look like, or the response from our ADs or anything like that. So all these things are so brand new, and you're trying to absorb it, but you're trying not to get caught in it, right? So for me as a younger player, as a sophomore that year, it's like I'm trying to, stay grounded and make sure that I'm present and everything like that, but also knowing, hey, like, I have 2 more years after this. Like, how can I then learn from this experience, right? So Keasel's going out on a high no matter what happens. Like, this is going to be it. And, he's going to, take the next step in his career. For some of us younger players, we're trying to give everything we have and learn as much as we can from those moments, so that we can then down the road take it to, newer heights or different, sort of challenges. So it was really interesting. I think, for my recruiting class, we had some really talented guys: Max Steves, Julian Gressel, Don Machado, Mark Jesuits, Ben Sedgwick, and Brian Kennedy. All of us, we're a sort of nucleus of that success. We were the younger guys really pushing and really trying to, advance what we got going. But we always talked about, okay, hey, this isn't going to be the last time that we're going to do something special, right? Like, we can't let, sophomore year be the time where that's it for us, right? So we've been trying to do as much as we can to continue to learn from those moments, so that way, when we are in Keasel's shoes, when it's our senior year, we can have our last dance, and that could look, real poetic and different and everything like that. So it was an interesting balance, trying not to get lost in it, but also really enjoying it, because you may never get it again.
But so 2 years later, you're a senior. Keasel, where are you at when you're watching this game against Maryland? And walk me through what it was like as a recent graduate watching your friends. First of all, I guess get down and look like they're out.
Yeah. So for me, I was actually in Harrisburg. I think our season just finished. Yeah, our season was over. It was kind of like late October, beginning of November, where it was. And I'm still in Harrisburg. I'm at one of my friends' house. I was like, hey, like my school's playing, I kind of, I'm watching them play in Maryland, because I was actually going to drive down for the game. I just, at the time I was working, so I couldn't, I had some other things I was doing. I couldn't do it. So I turned the game on, and I'm just like, yeah, we suck. You're not good. And then it's like 4-1. I'm just like, well, there goes my Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it was. And I turned the game off. And then, because for me, like when I'm a sports fan about like doesn't matter who, any team that I like, as soon as they start losing, I'm just like, just scrap the game. This game doesn't even count. Like, don't even matter. Play it again tomorrow. And then like I'm so like checking the notifications on my phone from like the game time and stuff. I'm just like, all right, 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. Oh, okay. Let me put this back on. I'm like, oh, now we're tied, and then they won. I was like, I should have went to that game. Yeah, I should have went to that game. And I was like, that is unbelievable. You know, I played Maryland twice, I think, in my career. Lost both of them. Pretty sure. One or two. I can't remember. But either way, I remember I went to Maryland. We lost. So to go to Maryland and get that win, I was just like, that is unbelievable. That is one of those feathers in the hat that, you know, you kind of hold on to for the rest of the program's history. You know, those are like when you walk into the locker room, you have like a picture of that score type thing. So for me, I was just like, that is unbelievable. I was excited. I wish I could have went to the next game, but that was a little bit further out for me. But yeah, it was unbelievable.
And Nick, you're on the field. You know, you're in this game. Maryland, you know, really, really great team that year.
They were the number one team, unbeaten. Everything was. I mean, when we got the draw, for us, we had the first round versus Delaware, and we beat them at home, and that was like our last. We knew that with our NCAA tournament ranking, that was going to be my last home game, right? And so I knew. I knew that, you know, pro soccer wasn't really quite in my trajectory. So I knew like, you know, I'm going out on a high at Providence. You know, I beat Delaware at home. No matter what, I can always say my last game at PC was fantastic. We get the draw, and we know that Maryland has that bye because they're undefeated. And I remember giving the post-game conference, and, you know, I was like, you know what, like, why not us? You know, like we're a talented group. We've dealt with adversity all year. If you look at, you know, the amount of injuries and even how we started, like we should have never even been in that position. So everything was sort of, you know, icing on the cake at this point because we were just so far, you know, just exceeded what we would have thought. You know, in 2014, all the stars aligned, right? Like everybody was firing on all cylinders. Pretty much everybody was healthy. We were getting a lot of goals off the bench. We had just a real deep team. And in 2016, you know, we had some big time injuries.
And that's when Mac got out injured for the season, right? Out. And then Machado was
out. Klinsmann Souza was out for the year. So really, I mean, we didn't really have all of the dynamic pieces that we thought we were going to have. And so for us to be, I think at one point we were 4-4, right? And, you know, going into conference play, and it's like, you know, if you're 500 in the middle of the season, it's like, you know, your season isn't really looking that great. So it was just so special being able to get to that space. And, you know, like Keasel was saying earlier, we played Maryland in the second round in 2013. We played at Maryland and we lost. And from a personal perspective, and Keasel knows the story very well. So we tie the game. We're down 1-0. We tie the game 1-1. I was coming off the bench as a midfielder, and our star midfielder, Wilder Arboleda, he was gassed, right? He was working so hard. So they put me in. I was kind of his sub or whatever the case is. You know, I'm a freshman, bright lights, all of the things. And, you know, I'm all excited, and I end up fouling a guy in the box within 3 minutes of me being on the field. Right. So I give up a PK. They score. It's 2-1. I think they score with like 2 minutes left, 3-1. So really the way that I had always internalized that game was a really big mistake on me. Right. So for me, it was like, you know, I almost owe it, you know, to our guys, to our program, you know, even to myself, you know, to kind of make up for that. And, you know, we had success in 2014, but now imagine my senior year, you know, this real poetic moment, we get to go back at Maryland. We're down 4-1. You know, we come back. I end up scoring a crazy goal. Like all of these things, you know, really sort of aligned for us to kind of have that comeback. But it was just something that was, you know, so special. And we talk about it to this day, you know, all the time. And it's just, you know, it's hard to even years later, it's still hard to put into words, like just how memorable that moment was, because it was something that we'll always hold on to.
So Keasel, obviously you remember that penalty that Nick gave away. When you're seeing him score that goal, did you kind of think back, oh man, this is great, like he's getting to kind of redeem himself for that foul in the box, you know, those years later?
Well, to be fair, his goal was a cross. 100% was a
Hold
cross.
on. What we're not going to do is
Listen, hold on. If you look back at the tape, if you look back at the tape, Nick is on the right side of the field facing inward, right? There's a lot of people in the box. I think it was just a corner kick or something happened. I don't know. And he hits it with the outside of his right foot. Now, Nick is my boy, and I love him to death, but he's not the most technical player in the world. So he was definitely trying to serve that into the mixer. And if I remember correctly, it was a very windy night. The wind was to your guys' back in the second half when you scored all those goals. And it just so happened that the wind took it to the upper 90. That's what really happened. It was a cross that, it fools goalkeepers all the time. Happens to me. It was a great finish, but I know he meant it as a cross for sure.
Trying to take the wind out of his sails, man.
I'm just saying. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, listen, I was on SportsCenter, top 5 for that. And it lives on in infamy. And I will say this, and Keasel's right. I was never the most technical player ever. And everyone knows it, which I think was part of the irony of the goal, right? Like this really, deft sort of outside of the right foot strike coming from me was just complete irony. But I promise you, because we were down 4-2 last game ever in my career, what do I have to lose by giving it a go? You know what I mean? So for me, it really was not a cross. And I know people don't believe me when I say that, and they'll watch this and be like, oh, he's lying. Promise you, I was actually really trying to do that. And I think it just, again, though, it was that sense of belief that came from that game, right? So we're down 4-1, we get a goal back, we get another one. So, I mean, it was just all sort of this momentum happening. And it was like, like I said earlier, like, why not us? Why not me in this particular moment, and really being able to kind of step up big for our program. So
even to pull off a win in Maryland, you're going to need other guys to step up in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that was what was, and I oftentimes, I'll joke with Keasel and some of the older guys about, which team was better and what was the more impressive run. And I always say, from a talent perspective, what we had in 2014 was just unbelievable. That's probably, player for player, one of the best teams that we've ever had. What we were able to accomplish with what, all of the doubt and all of the uncertainty of 2016 and being able to make it to an Elite Eight, beat a number 1 team on the road, being down, like that was, I thought that was very impressive, because we weren't working with all of the same pieces all together that we had in 2014. So to be able to pull off something so magical like that, I always feel like is very, very impressive. And I'm fortunate enough to be on both teams.
Yeah.
So, I have the luxury of kind of seeing, what it took in 2014 and what it took in 2016 and all of the different things, to make those things happen.
I mean, I think that 2016 team was maybe even more highly regarded coming into the season because of what you guys had accomplished. But, I know from my vantage point, it was like, you're missing a lot of goals on that field. How are they going to make a run? And then that Maryland thing kind of, I think really sort of seals the underdog accomplishment. You didn't make it as far as that 2014 team, but just even getting in that game in what was a 12-minute span of turning a lead around or turning a huge deficit around. I mean, that's something, that's something you don't really forget as a fan. I don't forget that. A lot of people don't forget that. I mean, now, obviously Julian's gone on to do some spectacular things at the next level, and that's going to stay with Julian for the rest of his career as well.
Yeah.
And, obviously I think he probably gets even more credit for that now than maybe he deserved at the time because of who he is now. But yeah.
And what's funny too is, after I graduated, I actually moved down to Baltimore, Maryland to do some teaching. And so, I taught a little bit during that time. I was, in and out of different, soccer communities within Baltimore or whatever. And so when I told them that I played for Providence, people were like, oh, wait, were you a part of that team? And of course my hair was cut, so they didn't recognize me immediately. And I'm like, you know what? I was part of that team. And matter of fact, I was that guy with the dreadlocks. So it was nice to kind of, be in enemy territory for the next 2 years after that big sort of moment for me. It's definitely something I can hold with pride as I, walk through Baltimore and College Park and, different parts of Maryland.
Yeah, so Keasel, you went on to play professionally and represent Barbados in in international competition. What are you up to now, and what's the sort of COVID-19 pandemic? How you been hanging in there with all this?
Doing well. It's actually funny because of COVID, I've actually had more time to train. I'm still there. I still train. I still have all my gear. I still go, whether it's running, doing my jail workouts or training in the morning. I'm still very involved. I coach on the side a little bit. Actually, director of goalkeeping for a club out here in Pittsburgh, a Beadling Soccer Club. And to be fair, even though I'm done playing professionally, I still have ties with Barbados. So I still keep myself as active as possible. Last year I played NPSL just to get some games in, just in case. I'm still very active with it. For me, I just can't let it go. Even though I'm not playing professionally, I let it go. And then my work takes up most of my time. I'm in an assistant manager role at a marketing company here in Pittsburgh, so kind of learning the in and outs of the trade, and definitely being able to right now we're doing a whole lot of, I'm learning the recruiting process. So I'm making phone calls and doing interviews and things like that. So I'm that person you see on the Zoom calls that have like a suit and tie from like the waist up and then shorts from the wrist down. So that's where I'm at right now. But no.
Nick, you mentioned teaching down in Baltimore, and you're back at Providence. What's that been like to be back? And does anyone recognize you there without your dreads?
Yeah, so after I graduated, I spent some time down in Baltimore. I was a special ed middle school math teacher, did some work around Black teacher retention down in Baltimore City. Really, really enjoyed it. I was fortunate enough when I left to go to Baltimore. Keasel's Uncle Harry, was making sure that I was good and checked in on me all the time. And, I truly appreciated having, some of Keasel's fam look after me while I was down there. But yeah, after a couple of years there, a fantastic role opened up at Providence to really do some great diversity work with the athletic department and just the school in general. And it, when you think about the role and you hear it, and people are calling me up about the position, it really felt like this position was created with me in mind. And so it's been really great to be back at Providence, doing some work that I cared about, while I was a student athlete, and now to be back, with more experience, a different sort of worldview, and to be able to be compensated for it. I mean, it's really fantastic to be back. And it is interesting, being back on campus, because, people do recognize me, but they might hesitate real quick. They're like, "You look like Nick Saylor." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know a little bit of this, and the hair is different." But overall, it's just been fantastic to be back and, really get some really great initiatives and things going there at PC, and still stay connected to the soccer team. I actually was just on the phone with our assistant coach, John Mark, about an hour before, talking to him about some different things and catching up with him. So it's really been great to just kind of stay connected, with the soccer team and just the entire, campus community just in general.
Great. Well, guys, I appreciate your time. I mean, before I let you go, Keasel, you haven't lost touch with your Eastern PA Delaware roots, have you? Living out on the other side of the state.
No, listen, I wish I could travel back a little bit more. We'll hopefully, fingers crossed, the union and the MLS is back up, and then hopefully, obviously, the NFL stadium. I'm a huge Eagles fan as well, so hopefully I'll be making some trips back across the state in the next couple months.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, guys. It was great to talk to you, catch up, and relive some of these magical moments in your guys' life and career. It's cool to see you guys are kind of staying in touch and continuing your friendship. And it seems like the relationship of any team is an important one. I mean, I'm a crap soccer player, but I have soccer buddies too, and guys I'm missing getting to play with out at YC, but. It's cool to sort of see the relationships that continue, after you're not playing together anymore, and you're wearing a suit to work.
Only from the waist up.
Yeah, only from the waist up.